Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel. Thank you so very much for joining me wherever you are in the world, and whether you're having a cup of coffee or your breakfast or taking your dog for a walk, or whether you're settling down to a lovely hot cup of cocoa, welcome to the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Click the notification bell and the thumbs up. And let's get started with tonight's story. Dear Sarah and all your lovely listeners, my name is Sheila and I currently reside in New York City in Hudson View Gardens in Washington Heights, which is on the upper tip of Manhattan, and I live in a Tudor-style English-looking apartment block with exquisite views over the Hudson River and perfectly manicured gardens. The area is very lovely and peaceful for New York, and I have lived in this part of the world all my life, although my mother's part of the family has definitely got some roots in West Virginia. I'm writing to you because I discovered a letter clearly written by my grandmother in the early 50s to her sister Chloe. It would seem that due to a mysterious long illness that the doctors failed to diagnose, my grandmother went into a period of convalescence in West Virginia to stay at her mother's sister's farm. I gather the doctors believed that she needed some fresh air in order to get stronger. In her letter she shares a remarkable encounter with a hairy humanoid creature that I emphatically believe fits the description of Bigfoot perfectly. I only discovered this letter by random chance because during the COVID-19 crisis, I decided to use the time to get cleaning out the attic that had remained untouched for over a couple of decades. Yet instead of cleaning, throwing out and clearing away, as I had so intended to do, I stumbled across tons of family photographs and old letters that were tied up in ribbons, and I couldn't resist reading them all. One letter invariably led to another and then to another, much like a packet of Doritos. I really got so stuck into the letters and the phenomenal stories that they all contained, and one letter was not enough, so I had to read them all. I was so riveted by them that I barely got any cleaning done at all, but instead succeeded in trailing vast volumes of dust and sticky cobwebs all over our pristine-looking cream carpets, much to the horror of my fastidious husband, who was less than pleased by all the dirty shoeboxes I brought down in their dozens, as well as releasing some rather big spiders to add to the dust. Naturally, I infuriated my husband, who is asthmatic and was sneezing relentlessly, asking me why on earth I had to bring down all the contents of our entire attic and over 30 years of accumulated dust and cobwebs. In my opinion, it was all worth my while, as my grandmother's letters are so eloquent and fascinating. I'm glad to inform you that she must have fully recovered from her mysterious illness that clearly stumped the doctors at the time, because they couldn't give her a diagnosis. I remember her very well when I was a young girl, and I never recall her being poorly. That was before her cancer diagnosis. Sadly, she passed away when I was about 13 years old, after fighting a long battle with breast cancer. I hope you and your listeners find her letter as interesting and inspiring as I did. Even my husband, who'd never believed in Bigfoot before, came an avid believer after I read him this letter, which I had to read to him over 3 times. So this is her amazing letter. My dearest Chloe, it is a struggle to put pen to paper, Chloe dear, but there is so much I want to convey with you of my happenings of late since I moved in to Aunt Lily's farmhouse here in West Virginia. I'm so eager to share with you the curious strange anomalies that have indeed occurred here of late. Did Mama not inform you that Dr. Gonzalez prescribed fresh country air as a manner of a cure for me, as he had no explanation for my lethargy and muscle-wasting disease that has for too long struck me down? Aunt Lily sent her personal doctor to make his acquaintance with me and to offer up an alternative explanation as to my peculiar, perplexing condition. Oh, Chloe dear, when he walked into the room, my temperature just soared and skyrocketed, not from the heat of a shooting high fever, of course, but it was the man himself that caused my pulse to race. For Chloe dear, his countenance was warm, congenial, yet very professional, and his presence made me quiver, for he was so handsome to behold. His smile was broad and becoming, and his humour made me all but giggle, for he was, without doubt, charmingly funny. His eyes expressed such earnestness towards my sorry state, and were blue and calm like the sky on a clear day. Yet his fine silky hair was as black as a raven's feathers, and equally as smooth. As I write this, my heart is fluttering at the very impression his charming countenance made upon me, for he warmed the cockles of my heart like the noonday sun. He had no hard and fixed opinion as to my bizarre condition, but he did conclude that some sunshine, air, and light exercise would indeed bring about increasing strength to my frail body and restore my waning appetite. He did impress upon Aunt Lily to feed me chicken broth 3 times a day, for he said that this magical concoction is the medicine of miracles and will bring healing to my bones. He advised all counter-medications should be dismissed because he had more faith in nature's healing powers than those of a pharmacist's counter. I know that you've never observed the beauty of West Virginia before, nor have you visited Aunt Lily's beautiful home that is wholesome, sumptuous and cosy, much like an old reliable friend. It's made of wooden beams of very old timber that comes from the woods here, and possesses very large windows and a sumptuous porch, and it's nestled in the heart of the Green Valley, and its charm is very apparent. For indeed my eyes did comprehend and absorb gluttonously the ravishing views here. My spirit was lifted immeasurably, like a soaring eagle taking flight for the very first time after its wings have been suppressed, vanquished and subdued for so very long. For there are cornfields here, pretty meadows, rolling verdant valleys, impressive mountain ranges, pretty barns, lakes, streams, ponds, and areas of woodland with vertical trees towering into the heavens with a gallant, dignified grace that no words are fitting to describe, for indeed Mother Earth is an artist that is so commanding. It was gazing upon the rich feasts of nature's resplendent finery that my famishing hunger to venture into the countryside grew very robust, and the yearning for the soles of my feet to press upon the rich green soft-textured grass grew very profound. So when Aunt Lily was not around, for she had indeed left the farmhouse for her shopping trip at the market, and she can be very stern and strict in my regard, so I took it upon myself to stealthily venture out into the fresh country air, which was not wise as my body was weak. But I had no cares for such pitiful considerations, and I staggered through the house like a lady of great age and fragility, as the impairment of my delicate limbs was immense, for they failed to support my body. Yet my determined heart and resolve was indeed stronger than my infirmity. Then there I was, Chloe dear, pressing my feet upon the fresh dewy turf, and feeling the sun beating upon my brow, and the surging joy in my heart was like that of a rocket shooting through the stars. I was breathing the air of the brand new day, and feeling a cool breeze blowing against my face, and I felt alive like a green bud shooting through a deadened stem. I sat my body down upon the grass, for my knees could hold me up no more, for I had become like the stem of a rickety lamp. Yet I still moved ever forward on the grassy lawn, for I crawled upon it with my hands and knees, like a newborn baby, ever forward, for I hankered to see so much more. I could survey the silvery lake that was not too far away, and its gleaming surface entranced me, for it shone like a mirror, and I contemplated all the tall emerald green trees with their bushy heads and the fluffy white clouds of the sky reflected within, and it stirred my heart with such awful wonder and amazement. Then I glanced through the statuous, imposing trees and discerned the gentle faces of the deer, and I watched their white tails wagging gently. I felt a peace, sister dear, that calmed my soul and washed away my weary worries over my illness like a heavy rainfall that leaves behind its feelings of renewed freshness. But suddenly, as I raised my body off the ground, I felt the feebleness descend over my body very quickly, and my head grew dizzy, and my body very faint, and I collapsed upon the ground into a huge heap. How long I was passed out, I have no idea, but when I opened my eyes, I thought I was in a dream, for towering over me was a big wild man with ape-like aspects to his appearance. He leant over me with deep-set golden eyes, wide with worry, for he saw my appalling state and seemed so aggrieved, for I think he believed that I was indeed dead. The creature's eyes grew light with joy as he saw me take my breath, and he knew that I was still in life. When he observed my eyes open, he made a sound of chatter, so much like a monkey, with a tone of extreme liveliness and ardent delight, for he was so thrilled to see me. I have no knowledge of who or what he was, for his body was as tall as the front door, and easily as wide, and his weight was very commendable, for he was astronomically strong, with brawny burly muscle that I have not seen in a man before, because he was twice as big as a grizzly bear. Of that I am most certain. I noticed his well-built arms were so very long, his hands so large, and his hulking legs were solid and powerful. The angular face of this wild man was becoming, for it was so gentle and serene, like that of my teddy bear that I once owned as a child, that had brought me so much comfort and reassurance when times were dark and sad. You would believe that fear for something of such gargantuan stature would be apparent, but there your assumptions would be very wrong, for to explain his demeanour is not fitting with words, for indeed I felt his gentleness and kindness in my heart, and it was as if he spoke to my inner depths with words I could hear and comprehend, even though nothing was articulated in words of verbal sound, for the language between us was all but silent. I felt as if he told my heart that all would be very well, and I would be fine again, and my strength would once again be restored. I heard him suggest in my heart to indulge myself upon the root of ginseng to bring about my strength and vital energy. The wild man lifted me up in his arms as if I weighed like a feather, and he effortlessly carried me through the front door of Aunt Lily's home, from whence I'd formerly come, with a bold confidence and assurance that was indeed commendable, for such surroundings were clearly alien to his knowledge. I guided him with my hands all the way to my bedroom and back to my bed, and he placed me upon my soft bed as I'd indicated, and looked around my bedroom with a keen, curious interest, for he had never seen inside a human home before, and that was clearly apparent. I watched him as he picked up Aunt Lily's picture of me in the frame, where he saw pictures of me when I was strong. He pointed to it with his large finger, and then at me, and I nodded. I felt him say without words that I would once again be in health like that again. I knew his words inside me to be true, for this creature had an understanding that is not from this world. Of that I am most certain, but how I knew this I cannot comprehend. I pointed to my jewellery box on the other side of my bed, and he handed it over to me, and I took out my silver locket with my picture inside and showed it to him. He studied it with excitement on his face, as he liked my picture, and he liked the way it opened and closed, and I put it in his hand and told him in my thoughts to keep it, and it was as if he knew my words, for he gathered it into his broad hand and clasped it with a pleased expression written upon his face, of which I was so thrilled to see. I noticed that his bubbly face was happy with the gift, for his eyes twinkled like bright stars. Finally he nodded to me as he bid me farewell, and then he glided out of my room and out of the front door of Aunt Lily's home. I regarded him from my bedroom window as I saw him move with strides that were like the speedy wind, and he walked as though he was marching, for he moved his arms backwards and forwards with a great swiftness of speed, and then was sadly gone from my sight. My heart was deeply subdued when he had gone, because his presence was like the noonday sun, so radiant and gladsome and cheerful in every regard. When I told Aunt Lily about the strange creature that I'd encountered, she told me that I'd been dreaming and had presumed my dream to be but real. But I know what I saw, and it was not from vain imaginaries or wishful thinking. So imagine her great surprise when outside our front door the very next morning was a large pile of fresh ginseng root stacked upon the step that had been recently dug from the ground. Aunt Lily's face grew whiter than a sheet, for her countenance was one of bewilderment and surprise. She gathered the root together and put some in my broth, and my body became stronger from just one serving. Now, Aunt Lily firmly believes I saw an angel that was sent to me by God himself, and I cannot disagree, for the strange creature, whatever it was to me an angel of note. For even though this wild man is a creature from the woods of ours with no wings upon his back, he is to me angelic in my regard, for the ginseng root he brought is a miracle indeed, for my body is strengthening each day, and my hunger is restored. Yesterday I ate a chicken and mushroom pie, and not a morsel was left upon my plate, for I had wiped it all but clean. I will be writing to you again, my sister dear. Fondest love, Pearls. So for your listeners, I've also attached a letter that was written 6 months after this one, where she once again mentions the Bigfoot. My dearest Chloe, it was with great enthusiasm that I write this letter to you, for there is strength in my body now, for the ginseng in the chicken broth has made me strong, and the weakness I once felt is now ebbing away and is no more. My appetite has grown strong, and I have exercised with short walks 5 times a day, and each day I move more upon my feet. I love the fresh air that I breathe, and the gentle wind that blows against my face each day, and the inspiring views of great beauty give me the encouragement to get up in the morning. I do not miss the city of New York with the bustling streets and the fast pace of life, for I love the quiet stillness of nature here that gives me great pleasure and rest. Aunt Lily has been very kind to me, and as a nurse she has indeed been attentive and caring. The handsome doctor has been making his calls, and he is a man of such gentleness and warmth, and I think he feels the attraction between us, for it is not born from my hopeful imaginings. His name is Christopher Campbell. He's actually told Aunt Lily that he cannot be my doctor any more, for he would like to court me when I'm fully well, but he does not know Aunt Lily has told me this truth. I'm so happy to hear that he feels this way, for I am desirous to know him well. I have seen the wild man one more time when he was at the lake, and I saw him eating a frog. My heart rejoiced when I saw him, for he is my friend. When he saw me, he came wading out of the water to greet me and pointed to my stronger body with pleasure. I felt him say in my heart that he knew I would get better, and he was right. He spoke again without words, but I knew inside my mind that his voice was very clear. He did not stay with me long, as Aunt Lily ruined the moment for me. She made her presence known as she came bounding towards the lake with a glass of fresh berry juice in her hands to give me. I'm glad she didn't see him, for the wild man shot away so fast as he didn't want to be observed by her. Aunt Lily did not get to see him. I think he's of a shy demeanour and nature, and is clearly not comfortable around other human beings, so I feel so honoured that he has taken pleasure in my acquaintance. Sister dear, I have no more news to convey to you, but love, as always, is with you. With fondest love, Pearl. I thought those 2 letters would be of interest to you and your listeners, and I'm glad to inform you that she did indeed marry the handsome Christopher Campbell, and they had 3 children together, one which of course was my mother. They happily settled down in Virginia, and I'm not sure whether she did actually get to see the wild man again, but I'm certain she did, but she made no references about him in her letters to her sister. However, based on the descriptions of her encounter, I'm pretty sure that she encountered a Bigfoot. So there you are. That's my story. Well, I just want to thank you so very much for that incredible story. It's amazing what you can find up in your attic. I've also looked at old letters of mine and going back to my family for generations, and it's extraordinary what you can learn. So thank you so very much for that. Until next time, goodbye and good night.